Welcome in everybody to Play Like a Jet. Good to have you back here. As always, I'm Luke Grant, and today we are talking quarterbacks. More specifically, we're going to jump into my top 10 quarterback list ahead of the 2021 season. Make sure you're commenting, liking, subscribing our videos across all the team here at Play Like a Jet. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Let's kick off the list at number 10. And for me, this was the most difficult position to fill on the entire top 10 list. But I started with Kyler Murray. There are a lot of guys who just missed out. Matt Ryan Tannehill. But the reason I gave Kyler Murray the edge was because of the dynamic nature of his running ability. But then I gave him the edge over Lamar Jackson, which might be controversial. I'm not really sure what the greater opinion is of him right now. But I gave Kyler Murray the edge because I think he's a better pure passer. He's got a more live arm, and I think he's much more accurate. Kyler Murray just keeps getting better and better over his first 2 years in the important stats you look at. Touchdown percentage, passer rating, EPA per play, all those stats which I look at when evaluating quarterback play. The biggest thing for me, he also dropped his sack number, his sack percentage in half. That's great awareness in the pocket, him and Cliff Kingsbury improving into year 3. I'm excited about Hopkins and hopefully them utilizing him in some different ways. So I had Kyler Murray as the 10th best quarterback in the NFL. Coming in at number 9 on my QB list ahead of the 2021 season was Cleveland Browns quarterback Baker Mayfield. I love the leap that Baker took under Kevin Stefanski in 2020. It had been a tough start to his career with 3 different head coaches, 3 different OCs, but Baker really got cooking down the stretch last year. I loved the way Stefanski leaned on the running game, opened up off of play action, and really helped Mayfield develop. Baker was asked to do probably the least he's done in his career. He had the lowest number of passing yards per game, but conversely, career highs in air yards per attempt, yards per completion, QBR. He was top 10 in quarterback rating last year, and I think he's going to only continue to improve along that trajectory this year. Leaning on Nick Chubb, leaning on Kareem Hunt, and he gets Odell Beckham back this year. As long as this offense isn't too centric and centered around Odell Beckham Jr., I think Mayfield will continue to make strides, and I think he's the 9th best quarterback ahead of the 2021 season. At number 8 on my list, guys, this is the one that's probably going to piss the most people off. I'm aware of that. I know this guy is a consensus top 4 or 5 quarterback for most people in the NFL right now. But at number 8, I have Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills quarterback, Jets divisional rival. And let me preface it by saying, if he puts together multiple seasons like he did in 2020, Josh Allen is a top 5 quarterback. But right now, I want to remind people Lamar Jackson was consensus top 3, top 5 quarterback last year, and then, took a step backwards again. We've seen a 2-year sample size of below average Josh Allen, and we've seen 1 season of the elite play. And even then, there were some volatile statistics that I'll talk about later on. But let's focus on the things he did so well. Josh Allen, 35 plus touchdowns, 9 rushing touchdowns on the ground. Only had 9 or 10 turnovers, I think it was. I think it might have been 10 turnovers in 2020. But the things he did so well, his QBR, he was top 3 or 4 in the league. His touchdowns, he was 5th in the league. The thing that impressed me most about Josh Allen was that despite his air yards per attempt, yards per completion, his average depth of target, those numbers climbed in 2020, and they climbed significantly. But despite that, so did his accuracy numbers, his charting, all those things you want to see, completion percentage above expectation, all those numbers went up for Josh Allen, and that's what allowed him to have such a successful 2020 season. Stephon Diggs was huge for his development, allowed him to get separation quicker, to find those windows, to create bigger windows. But I want to see it again, as I said at the top of the video here for Josh Allen. I want to see the consistency, him string multiple seasons together. And I think some of those volatile statistics that aren't very sticky, as PFF talks about, are where he was so successful. 3rd down against a blitz. I want to see 1 more season from Josh Allen, but right now he's the 8th best quarterback for me in the NFL. Number 7 on my list of top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL ahead of the 2021 season. Probably another surprise. I went Matthew Stafford. There's a lot of debate right now whether Matthew Stafford has been mediocre because of his surroundings in Detroit, or if Matthew Stafford just isn't that guy. He isn't Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers. We're going to find out this year. I'm betting on a huge uptick in production with Sean McVay in LA. I think Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, that running game, more play action, that's going to be so beneficial. In 2020, look, he had 26 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. I think you're going to see him exceed 33, 34 touchdowns. His intended air yards per completion last year was upwards of 8.5 yards per throw, and that's a great number. That was top 5 or 6 in the NFL. So I think this is the year we see Matthew Stafford break out. I'm excited to watch it. I think he's been consistently really, really good, and we're going to see great in 2020. Racing through the list, number 6 on my top 10 quarterback list is Dak Prescott. Now look, Dak had a shortened season in 2020, but he was on pace to do incredible things. He was throwing nearly 6,000 yards when he went down in that Week 5 matchup. He was on pace for 32 touchdowns, and he has a great infrastructure around him. Dak has a very solid O-line. Look, they aren't elite like they used to be, but they're still a really good offensive line. He's got the 3 wide receivers that are probably a top 3 or 4, group in the NFL. And I think Dak has an opportunity to go from a game manager like he was early in his career when they made the playoffs in his rookie year to now one of the elite quarterbacks. We're going to see if he can make that step. He's got the big contract, what will look like building around him now that he's demanding that money. But I think Dak Prescott is going to get better and better. If the leg's healthy, I think he's going to push to be a top 5 quarterback this year. Coming in at number 5, top half of the list now, is Russell Wilson, Seattle Seahawks quarterback. So consistent, the epitome of consistency every single year. And even though we say that he managed to set a career high in touchdowns in 2020, great receiving core around him. Metcalf and Lockett are a really good duo. But what's so impressive about Wilson is that consistency I mentioned off the bat. He's had a passer rating greater than 105 3 seasons in a row. That is extremely impressive. We know how accurate he is. His ability to break, contain, and be a thrower rather than a runner. He's so dynamic, and hopefully the O-line holds up again and he can stay clean. But what we do know is he takes a few too many sacks, and that's why he's number 5 on this list rather than 3 or 4. His sack percentage number is up around 8-9% every single year, and we're starting to learn that quarterbacks are, responsible for a large percentage of sacks in the NFL. So Russell Wilson, great quarterback. Expect big things out of him again. Number 5 on the list this year. At number 4 on my list, guys, is a little difficult one, and I went with Deshaun Watson. I'm aware that he might not play this year, but I didn't want to comment on the legal things, and if he does see the field, I think he's the 4th best quarterback in the NFL, pushing to be that 3rd guy who's the next person on my list. Phenomenal season in 2020. This was a terrible roster. They got rid of their best offensive player outside of Watson in DeAndre Hopkins, and despite that, he was phenomenal. Air yards per attempt were like 8.6 yards per throw. But even though they were so aggressive and that depth of target was so deep, he had an interception percentage of 1.3. So that's 1.3% of his total throws throughout the entire 2020 season were interceptions. He did a great job keeping the ball clean despite the aggressiveness and having 30-plus touchdowns. He looked after the ball so well, and that's the special trait that Deshaun Watson has. Like the guy we talked about previously, Russell Wilson, takes too many sacks, up around 9 every single season, 9% sack rate, but special talent. And look, if he sees the field, that's a big if right now. He's the number 4 quarterback in the NFL. Number 3 on my list, guys, and I am not betting with Father Time again. I have bet against Tom Brady the last 2 or 3 years, and I'm not making that mistake. He just keeps defying the odds, and I thought he was declining his last 2 years with the Pats, but was phenomenal last year. And as a Jets fan, it's kind of nicer to say that now that he won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. Look, Brady had his best season since 2017. QBR, completion percentage, air yards per attempt, touchdowns, all those numbers, the best they've been over the last 4 seasons for Tom Brady. Doesn't ever get sacked, 3.3 sack percentage in 2020. What more can you say about this guy? He was in the MVP conversation, new system, learning a new language with Bruce Arians, but he excelled again. And look, there's going to be a time when he falls off that cliff, but he showed no signs of doing that last year. The roster's the same this year, so I'm not betting against him. Well, we've reached the pointy end of the list now, guys, and number 2 for me was Aaron Rodgers. This was much closer than I thought heading into it between he and Mahomes. Similar to Brady, people kind of asked if Aaron Rodgers was declining coming into the 2020 season, but he was the MVP and was so good. One of the most incredible statistical seasons you'll ever see. His air yards per attempt were over 9.5 per throw. Incredible statistic. His touchdown percentage over 9%. But his interception percentage was 1%, exactly 1%. Throwing a touchdown on 9% of your plays compared to only an interception rather, 1%. Just incredible. His passer rating was 121. Just a phenomenal season from Aaron Rodgers. And I know he has Devontae Adams, but there's not a lot of talent on that rest of the roster at wide receiver or tight end. He was phenomenal last year. He's younger than Brady. He's got some more elite years left. I want to see him win a Super Bowl in the next 2 or 3 years. But right now, just Aaron Rodgers was the second best quarterback. But the guy who was number one, no surprises heading into this, was Patrick Mahomes. Similar to Rodgers, incredible touchdown to interception numbers, looks after the ball so well for an elite quarterback and someone who's a gunslinger and throws it down the field. The reason I gave Mahomes the edge over Rodgers was just that ability outside of the pocket. I feel like he has the ability to stretch teams and scare teams a little more, and he's so accurate. And that's not something you necessarily think of with Patrick Mahomes. But if you look at some of the charting numbers, like on target percentage, it was at 76%, which was higher than Tom Brady last year. An accurate guy, so dynamic, and right now I have him as the best quarterback in the NFL. So that'll do it, guys. Let me know what you think of my list for the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. Guys who didn't make it, Lamar Jackson, Matt Ryan, Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins, Justin Herbert. They were probably the next fringe of players for me, but really happy with how it shook out. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time.